Well, the season has ended officially for the University of Minnesota, and one of St. Louis's headed to St. Louis now after signing a 3-year entry-level contract. 23rd overall in the first round by the Blues, of course. But Snuggerud, his time has come. He will join the team tomorrow on March 31st. So today we're joined by a special guest, Mike Meyer, to discuss what we can expect from Snuggerud, where he might slot into the lineup, and his NCAA season this year, all that and more today on Note News. Welcome in, everyone. We are Note News. John and Alec with you as always, joined by a special guest today. We are a St. Louis Blues podcast. We go live twice a week. We talk all things Blues, both the main club, which is on fire right now, but also prospects and draft and all that good stuff. So definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for getting us to 300. Let's keep this ball rolling and get to 400. Like this video. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at No News Pod. You can follow and rate wherever you listen. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. We're doing a giveaway on Twitter. Go check that out. Giving away a free Cardinals hockey jersey. It's pinned in our Twitter profile at Note News Pod, so go check that out for the instructions. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you get a double entry. So go check out that tweet pinned in our profile. But it's enough about us. We're joined by a special guest, Mike. Thanks for coming on again. And why don't you tell the people a little bit, about what you've been up to lately?
Guys, thanks so much here for having me. I love it. Anytime I get the chance to be able to talk about Blues hockey here, especially with you guys, it's always a treat, always a pleasure here. So, yeah, always open and available here to be able to chat with you guys. Really, there's a lot of really great stuff here happening. We just launched Sports Hub STL, boy, about 2 months ago here right now, and it's just been picking up steam here a lot. We'll have our Sunday night stream here tonight with Brooke Grimsley and Jamal Mayers. So if you guys are interested in being able to hop on here with that, that's every single Sunday night here, unless something happens. But we've been going here consistently here every single week. We've got written articles, written content, and so if you're interested in anything sports news here around St. Louis, from the Battlehawks to the Blues to the Cardinals who are playing here right now, I mean, we've got anything and everything here ready to go for everybody. So it's just a great place to be able to look here for St. Louis sports.
Yeah, yeah, it's been awesome to see over the social media, see that growing. Alec, how's it going? How you feeling about the Blues right now? Just a big win over Colorado.
Absolutely, could not be feeling any better about this team. I've been on the record saying I was wrong, that they were so much better than I said they were, and I'm so happy to be wrong. Just some incredible, like, gritty, gutsy wins. Everything is coming together for the Blues right now. Everything is coming up blue, and I'm excited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we all are. So with a win over the Colorado Avalanche yesterday, they have now won 9 games in a row. All season we were like, why can't they win 3 games in a row? Like, what is this? Well, I think they're making up for that pretty well, winning 9 in a row. Mike, I want to get your thoughts on this team's season so far. I think the last time we talked, it was long before they were looking this good. So yeah, what are your thoughts? What do you think their ceiling is, and you know, what do you expect from this team down the stretch?
Yeah, I think last time it was all doom and gloom. I
Yeah,
think we were pretty well convinced it was going to be a top 10 pick. That's where a lot of my draft projections have been. That's where any of like my former articles were talking about here with this team. And then, you're looking post Four Nations. I mean, this is a team whose best record here in the NHL, best goals for at 3.89 here per game, which is just bonkers here to think of that. That's this team. Third best in goals against, eighth best power play in the end. Like this is a team who is on a freight train from hell and get out of its way, because they're going to roll you over here at that case. Uh, to be able to say like where I think they're going to finish out, that's okay. I need to separate Homer me versus like, okay, what's this team going to really look like? Right now, I mean, it looks like this team's unbeatable. It just does, and so it's hard to say like where their ending here is going to truly look. I was really kind of concerned, thinking it was going to be yesterday, against the Avs. I would not have been upset by that. But this team continues to show its resilience. This team continues to show its adjustments here in between periods, and they just continue to just get better, like a fine wine. Just here as it continues to age, it just gets better and better. So, this team is definitely making the playoffs. But whether they're going to be in wild card 1 or wild card 2 is yet to be seen, because I think, did Minnesota lose here
Yes,
today?
they did.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
So that's an interesting spot for St. Louis to be in. Very, very interesting spot. So at this point, I don't want to be the team who has to play them in the first round, because this team is looking really, really difficult to play. But I just hope that they're not hitting their hot streak right now and then just go cold all of a sudden here in the postseason. So where they stop, that's up to them. That's totally up to them here at this point, because again, they're just looking hot and everything is clicking. And the fact that they get a Jimmy Snuggerud that they can throw into the mix here right now is just okay.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
insane.
I think even with like, if we make it to the playoffs and are met with playoff disappointment, I really think at this point the Blues are kind of playing with house money, given how low
Sure.
expectations were. So even then, I think we could call it a pretty successful season. See how Snuggerud
Yeah.
looks, and that's in like the worst possible outcome at this scenario. So that's just so exciting to be in this position. I can't believe it.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, again, when you were talking here earlier this season, everybody had the Blues again, top 10 pick. You could have been looking here at a pick even within the top 7, even potentially depending on how the lottery landed, even a top 5. Which this was absolutely a class where you're saying, okay, a top 5 pick, absolutely. Top 10 wasn't as overly intriguing here with me. That's where you're like, okay, well they've only got 1 pick, I think, within the first 4 rounds here this year. So there was discussion, okay, well, could they potentially trade back? Could they potentially, this makes it very, very interesting to offer a top 10 pick here to somebody, but then that the Blues could be able to start recouping a bit more assets if they were to trade back here in the draft. So absolutely playing here with house money. Doug Armstrong wanted this team to be able to make the postseason here. That was the goal. That was the aspiration here heading into this season. And it's no offense to Drew Bannister, but I think he was a little bit in over his head, coming into the season, looking at some of the players that he had to be able to manage, that he didn't have any former NHL experience here as far as coaching goes. He had a lot to be able to balance here at this point, and so to be able to take on a retooling, rebuilding, whatever you want to consider this, he had a lot to be able to balance, and very fortunate that they were able to land a guy who was like um, Jim Montgomery. I want to go say Drew Bannister again. My goodness. Here like a Jim Montgomery, because it's been ever since Jim Montgomery that this team was able to uncover anything and everything that we've seen them turn around. And again, very fortunate we had the 4 nations break, because if not for that little bit extended break, I don't think that you see as good of a turnaround. Maybe,
Yeah.
but they're very fortunate to be able to have that long break where they could really just take a moment to breathe, reset, and really get their ducks in a row to be able to hit the ground running here post 4 nations.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's well put. I mean, Drew Bannister in over his head, and I mean, he was kind of given a really difficult task for, someone who's a little bit newer to the game, and at least at the NHL level, and you can't really fault him for the results. Like he sort of turned the season around for them last year, but yeah, this team looked a lot different. There was a fair bit of turnover in the offseason, and whether or not we expected them to take a step, I think, yeah, like you said, that's what Doug Armstrong wanted, and I could not be happier with the way it's gone under Jim Montgomery, though.
For
But
sure.
yeah, I think I made the point on one of our last episodes, or one of our recent ones. It feels like Armstrong has his sights set on just having like a signature season. Like I feel like he wants this to be what we remember him for, other than of course the Stanley Cup. But like here in towards the end of his time in his current role, he's like, I want them to remember who I am, and so that comes with the offer sheets, of course, hiring Jim Montgomery, and now calling up a couple top prospects, Dalibor Dvorsky and Jimmy Snuggerud. So yeah, we're here to talk Snuggerud today. I mean, so Snuggerud surprised Blues fans last year. He decided to return to the University of Minnesota to play his junior season instead of signing with the Blues. And we can talk a little bit about that as well. He was a captain this year and had a pretty solid season with 24 goals, 27 assists, 51 points this season. He led his team in all three of those categories. He was pretty up there in the NCAA as well, I believe, tied for the sixth most goals, 12th most assists, and sixth most points in the nation. Pretty sweet. 10th in the NCAA in points per game as well. And Minnesota's season ended rather recently in the NCAA tournament, the overtime loss to UMass. Correct. So Snuggerud did have 2 goals in that game, so he did what he could. But Mike, how would you describe Snuggerud's season so far? Like, what has stood out to you about his play this season?
Yeah, he was. You hit the nail here on the head. That he's really turned things around. He had a little bit of a dip last season. I think statistically speaking, there was a lot for him to work on. He was going from playing with Matthew Nyes here, like consistently here on his line here again with like Logan Cooley here as well. So he's playing with 2 of the top players of amongst his age group here at the collegiate level. And so I'm not saying it was an easy ride for him because he absolutely had to earn his spot here on that line. But the fact that he was able to keep up with them all season long was a true testament to his ability. And then last season, he started able to play and you just kind of saw that adjustment here for him. More guys, they likely had him pinned here on the board and said, okay, we got to watch out for 81, and he didn't really have as much of a support group. Here is like what he necessarily needed, along with that mixture of like that sophomore slump. And so the decision to be able to go back to the University of Minnesota this season was a bit of a surprise, I think, to Blues fans and to people who were around the NHL, because they were thinking like, well, this is a top-rated prospect. Like, why would he go back? But I think the decision for him was truly for the best, because he's able to work on his all-around game. He recently actually had an interview here with Dan Kelly here just yesterday, talking about his game, and he was saying that he was able to work amongst folks, work on his full well-rounded 200-foot game, and that we did see improvements here with and without the puck. That he's able to start really using his body and his frame the right way. You're talking about a guy who's 6'1" here, 6'2", 187 pounds, at least according to Elite Prospects. That's a big dude, especially at the NCAA level. And so he's able to use his body well to be able to create the plays, give time here to his teammates in the offensive zone and in the neutral zone. But I think the thing that you really started able to see here more so than anything was just his defensive side of the game really started to spark here a lot more. And so, again, while that's working out really well at the collegiate level, he's going to be the first one to admit, that there's still a lot for him to be able to work on. Which is where and why this offseason here is going to be crucial for him if he's going to try and make the team here out of training camp. The talent is still there for him to be able to do so, and I think the third line role is going to be set for him this season and next. But I also wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see him start in the AHL, just to start that progression, kind of similar to Dalibor Dvorsky. We're like, we want to ease you in. We just want to ease you in, get used to the pro level. Like, yes, you could play on the third line here right now. But again, you've seen Doug Armstrong do this. Again, Dalibor Dvorsky, you've got Otto Stenberg, who's now playing here in the AHL. You did this here with Zach Bolduc. You've got all these top prospects who they're just going to ease these guys here into the pro level. And I don't think that should be a fault here on a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud, because he's got a lot of play here that's going to be here in him. Still going to be a top 6 prospect here moving forward. He still has plenty of a good shot and offensive abilities, but again, don't be surprised, in my opinion, if you start to be able to see his name head to Springfield here first next season at least.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, super excited. Super excited that he has taken those steps. So I feel like, could we talk a little bit more about this? Because I feel like there's somewhat of a negative connotation associated with like his decision to return to Minnesota this year, at least like among Blues fans. And as you mentioned, it was a lot of people questioned it sort of across the hockey world and were sort of surprised by it, I guess. But like, what do you see as the real value of him returning to college instead of coming straight to St. Louis. Could you touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think the big decision here for him was, one, he had that desire and that mentality of, there's that loyalty here to UMass. Not to UMass, the University of Minnesota here rather.
Hmm.
He wanted to
Yeah.
bring a championship back home. This was his family. And he wanted to do right by his family. He was named one of the team's captains here moving into this season, and he was absolutely a leader here for this squad. And to be able to make that decision to say, I'm going to go back, I'm going to continue working on here things in my game amongst my peers, but I'm also going to go back and be able to try and be able to win a championship in something that the university hasn't seen here for quite a while. And so I think there's a lot of notability here in that, because I mean, again, there is that loyalty that you start to be able to see in a guy of that nature that says, I'm going to do right by my family. I'm going to do right by giving the people one more chance here, one more thing here from me. Um, and so I don't think that there's necessarily really anything wrong with that by any means. And I think that it proves more about his leadership and his character more than it means about like, well, I don't think that I'm good enough to be able to play here in the NHL. I really don't want to go to the AHL. I'm just going to take one more season. I don't think that one bit. I think that, again, you're just seeing a guy who wants to be loyal and wants to be able to continue to work. And I think it just worked all much more for the better. And again, it helps him because it works on his leadership skills here as well, trying to help move along a bunch of guys who are working their way into the NCAA, and guys who are trying to start, passing that torch off here to the next generation here of players.
So what you're telling me is our top prospect is also a high character, high loyalty guy. I mean,
That's
that's
exactly what I'm telling you.
I don't know that you could get much better than that.
No.
One thing with Snuggerud that you sort of touched on that I'm most excited to see is his size as a winger is really good, and I think will really help continue the way that they've been building and playing out this team as getting bodies in front of shots, which is interesting because I think he's got the ability to do it. I'm not sure that we've seen that at Minnesota, but I think playing it under Monty's system will ask a little bit different, and it's interesting to see how he'll develop. But I want to get your thoughts now, transitioning to Snuggerud in the NHL.
Yeah.
He's here finally. The wait is over, and boy, I am so excited for it. But I want to get your take on where you see him slotting in, and how specifically how you see his skill set will be able to adapt, and essentially what does Snuggerud add to this team that makes them a better club overall that they just didn't have?
There's a lot that he still brings to the table that I think that you're seeing a lot more in a bunch of these players who have been added here to this roster earlier. You mentioned about like the offer sheets, Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. Dylan Holloway starting to bring that physical edge here to this squad. He's got a good shot here on him. Zach Balduke is really starting to establish himself, with a great one timer. He's setting himself up as that bumper spot here on the power play. And boy, he almost had one yesterday, and he was robbed point blank here. And I think that that's just going to add just another dynamic here to the power play. The tough part is, again, like you've got this 9-game winning streak, and so you don't want to necessarily mess with the chemistry right now. But this season, I think that he probably plays third line. I don't necessarily put him up in the top 6, like maybe a couple of shifts with a Robert Thomas, maybe put him with the Braden Shen here a little bit. That starts to make the line, I think, with Braden Shen maybe a little bit slower, because like Snuggerud's not the fastest of skaters. He's a bit of a tank here right now, and so like his skating, he still has to be able to work on here a bit. That's where third line, I think, is a really good spot for him moving forward. The tough part is I mean, again, like who do you take out of the lineup? Do you take a Matthew Joseph out? Do you take an Oscar Sundqvist? Do you take all of these guys are playing just crucial roles here for this squad, and they might not be scoring, but dang, they're playing really good, sound hockey here at this point in time. And so it's gonna be tough to be able to take any of these players out of the lineup and say, hey, we're putting the college kid in. Yeah, I get it. He was a highly touted prospect, but like, man, these guys have earned the right to be in the lineup here every single game, and that's hard to be able to break to any single player, regardless of how old that they are, and I think especially as they get a little bit older, when they've been playing here so well. So right now, I think that he potentially sees what happened like with Dvorsky, like where he gets put into a third line role, like, hey kid, just play your game. Don't mess up too bad. Just play your game. We want to be able to see you take those one timers here from the outside. I think he could see a little bit of power play 2 time here, like within that game, but I don't see, like, unless there's an injury, I don't really see him getting a lot of time here down the stretch. They're trying to push her for that wild card spot. They're trying, I think Montgomery's going to go with the guys that he trusts here more than anything, and this is just going to be a good learning period here for him. Get to know some of the guys, get to see what it's like playing at the NHL level, the travel, the prep, all of that, and it's just going to be great here as he can be able to hit the ground running here for next year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We've just seen like a level of consistency when it comes to the forward lines that you just don't see. I think it ended at 15 straight games with the same 4 forward lines being rolled out. Like that's just crazy. I think it went all the way until the Buchnevich injury. But something interesting is that, on the point of the third line, the past couple of games against Colorado and Nashville, we've seen Matthew Joseph get his lowest playing time in a couple weeks. Like last night, just under 8 minutes. Against Nashville, it was under 10 minutes. So it seems like, do you think maybe that's who he replaces in the lineup? Because I don't think you take Bolduc out at all.
No, you don't take Bolduc out. I mean, I hate using the phrase, like, he's been money lately.
Yeah.
Again, like, I hate using the phrase.
Oh, yeah.
He's been one of your top scorers here right now. Like, I don't think he can be able to move on. Like, he's finally struck gold, and I think he's really getting confident in his game. And you're finally seeing the guy who scored 50 goals in the queue. So yeah. No, I don't think you take him out. Joseph, I think, is going to be the odd man out here, unfortunately. Now that Buchnevich has come back, you've seen Texier here out of the lineup. Once you see Snuggerud officially join the team here on Monday, I believe Dvorsky would probably go back down here to the AHL. And I get it, as good as it has been able to see him play his one game, he's just been hanging out. He's been practicing, he's been doing all that, and it's great. Again, like, you want to be able to see him practicing, and you want to see him get used to playing with the guys in the in the NHL. You want to be able to see the winning environment so that he can be able to take back to his guys. But I think you're going to see him just more so like a healthy scratch here, more so than anything. But yeah, I do think Matthew Joseph will very likely be the odd man out. Joseph, in my opinion, was always going to be a depth role player here anyway, and so seeing him scratched in favor of a Jimmy Snuggerud is not, it's not a big loss. I hate to be able to say that. He's so much better than I am. Like, let's face it. So me saying that it's not a big loss is, not a great thing. But I don't think that it would be overly upsetting to be able to say, hey, we're scratching Matthew Joseph in favor of Jimmy Snuggerud.
Yeah. But he's been a solid player, and it's not like it's kind of a good problem to have that you have a couple solid options and have to choose between them for sure.
Yeah.
I got to ask you about Zach Bolduc just real quick. Like, do you think he gets any Calder votes here? Because he has been one of the, if not the best, he's been one of the best rookies in the past month or so. So, do you think he gets some like 5th place votes, some down ballot votes, or anything like that for Calder?
Yeah, I definitely think he gets some love. I could see him getting somewhere between 3 through 5 type of votes. I think you've got way too good of a prospect here in Lane Hudson, who, in my opinion, should be taking it. But then you've also got Dustin Wolf is still considered here a rookie this season. So I would
and then between Mitchkov and Celebrini, it's probably probably 5th.
The rookie class this year is insane.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong either way. Like, you can totally make a case here for any single one of these guys to take the vote. I personally think Dustin Wolf, because of it's been Dustin Wolf's, like, it's been his show, and he's the reason why Calgary is where they're at here right now. But I think it should be it could be Lane Hudson. He's performing at such a high level here right now for Montreal that I think he had 3 assists here today here alone, and this guy is just insane. So the name recognition here in Celebrini, Will Smith, all these different guys. Mitchkov is finally playing better here without John Tortorella.
Yeah.
Who saw that coming?
Yeah.
It's mind blowing to be able to see what some of these rookies and this young group that are playing right now that they're going to be coming in. This is such a golden era here for hockey right now. They talk about like, oh, what's the next generation? Like it's here. You're watching it, and it's incredible. So if you're not watching hockey, jump on board.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they've been excuse me, gosh. I think they've been doing a better job of like marketing the game too, at least
For
in
sure.
years previous. And there's just so much like exciting talent. I do think too, like the Four Nations had a really big impact on that. I know at least in my circles, like people started talking about hockey with just
Yep.
how intense and national. But yeah, Bolduc's been awesome. I mean, just awesome. So I think next we want to ask about potentially what you could see Snuggerud playing with, or like what role he could fit with his other teammates, like how he can elevate teammates or how teammates can elevate him. So, if he gets minutes with a guy like a Robert Thomas, I mean, should the expectation be that this is a threat? This is our next, what do you want to call it? Buchnevich, Tarasenko, or some other more power forward, like, or is it more just like Zach Bolduc last year? Like, we'll see what he can do, and if maybe they'll switch up the lineups because Jim Montgomery has been in mid-game often switching up the lines pretty frequently, like mixing and matching with wingers. So probably we will get to see some minutes with a guy like Thomas or Shen. Do you see that as potentially a chance for him to unlock and get a crazy goal streak going or something? Or is this going to be more just he's a rookie, this is his first chance in the NHL, maybe let's pump the brakes just a little bit?
Again, Homer versus realism. That's always the hard part, because you want to say, yeah, heck yeah, man, put him up there with Robert Thomas and let's just see him cook. But at the same point in time, I think Jim Montgomery is a bit too smart and a bit too cautious here to recognize, yeah, he is a rookie. He's getting in. There's a bigger picture here to this. You don't want to overwhelm. And let's face it, if you put a guy here like Jimmy Snuggerud on a line with Robert Thomas, he's drawing likely the toughest defensive matchup here of the game. By putting him here on a third line, that's where you potentially start to unlock, maybe a little bit more of like some offensive opportunities here again, like with a guy like Oscar Sundqvist, which, I mean, it sounds crazy to be able to say that, but you just start to unlock here a little bit more of a potential chance here for some offensive opportunities. You'll very likely see a lot more of a physical nature here coming from a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud. I mean, again, 6'2", 187 pounds, that's no small boy. He's going to use his body and he's going to use it well. Here down the line, I do think you're going to see some chances of Dvorsky, Bolduc, and Snuggerud here all on a line together. I don't see a single reason why that couldn't be a line. If you start to put him, and he's performing well, and if you start to be able to put him up there, here, I think you could see a guy like Buchnevich move down the line. And that's not a bad thing, because statistically speaking, and just go look at the stats yourself, Buchnevich has regressed offensively every single season that he's been here, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, yeah, it is, but like it's I think he's
Like
drawing too tough
manageable?
of matchups. Yeah. So it's definitely tough. So I think you could be able to see him start to take the place here of Buchnevich long term. It's probably not going to happen next season, but at least through the rest of the season, if and when he draws into the lineup, it's very likely going to be on the third line role.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure. Just a couple more questions here before we wrap up with Mike, and then Mike will hop off, and then we're going to keep it rolling and react to the Blues' recent games. But Mike, I got to ask you about Dvorsky, man. I mean, we only saw him in one game, but what did you think in that game? And you mentioned maybe he'll get sent back down, but like, what are your thoughts on Dvorsky this season with the Blues?
Yeah, I definitely didn't mind his game. That was a really, really physical game for him to actually unfortunately
Yeah,
draw into.
yeah,
Yeah.
I really liked the decision of Montgomery to really, I think, hold back on playing
hmm
him. He made a really, I mean, I thought he got his first point on the power play, and unfortunately, hit one extra stick here, too many for him to be able to get his first point. But man, he made a brilliant no look pass in order to keep the offensive play here alive before the Blues scored the ultimately ended up scoring the goal. I didn't mind it. He wasn't as strong here on the faceoff dot, but again, he's in the NHL here now. Faceoffs are going to be a little bit harder for him to be able to come by here in the victories. I think he's still going to be a strong player here, on the faceoff dot moving forward. But I really, really like what you're seeing here so far from him. He was not afraid to be able to take a whack here, at a loose puck to try and bounce it in. He was not afraid to be able to show off his offensive awareness. Montgomery mentioned here after the game, you're seeing a guy play that just looked a whole heck of a lot older here with his offensive IQ. Be able to see him like with his hockey sense that are just beyond his years, and that is a huge, huge compliment here for a guy like Dvorsky, who is very, very young here still. And so I think if you're seeing a guy who's playing 3, 4, 5 years ahead of potentially where he's projected to, boy, I'm curious to see where he's going to look like in 3, 4, 5 years at this point. So I think his time in the AHL has been beautifully, beautifully done. You're seeing a lot more of a well-rounded player here. Again, just going back to the defensive awareness, you're seeing him become a bit more of a finer skater, be able to recognize when to pick up plays where and when that he needs to, and where he can potentially draw back here a little bit to be able to start spring loading, here in offensive zone, in outbreak here at that point. So there's still some work to be done. There's definitely work to be done, which is where, I mean, again, I think that he and Snuggerud are almost penciled in here for third line role next season. But I really like to be able to see where the development has really helped him out here in the AHL this season. And again, it's another reason why I think that you could be able to see the same exact treatment come for a guy like Snuggerud next season as well.
yeah, for sure. And you think Snuggerud will be a significant factor going into next year?
He definitely could be. I mean, the cards
Yeah,
are completely all on his side. If he
yeah,
has the ability to, which I think he does, he can absolutely be able to make that threat. But the Blues have to be able to outweigh. Do we want him playing? And this is the same conversation we had with Dvorsky last year. Do you
hmm
want him playing third line, limited minutes, limited time, limited opportunities, but growing in the NHL amongst his NHL peers, or do you want him down in the AHL playing top six,
yeah,
likely power play
Mhm.
one, depending on how the veterans are doing? Dvorsky has been playing second line and second power play unit.
hmm
Again, very likely could be the exact same treatment. So it's the exact same conversation here that you have with Dvorsky. I'm one that says give the guy here as much ice time here as possible, and that's where Springfield really, really comes into play. Again, Snuggerud has all of the abilities to be able to hold forth, be able to say, guys, I am a player. I am the guy. And same with Dvorsky. He's the exact same way. But I
hmm
think the Blues potentially played the slow role here with him, and he could be a factor. I mean, again, injuries, anything else is crazy able to happen. Dvorsky could go down to the AHL and just absolutely light it up. We don't know, and just
yeah,
say, guys, I'm pretty much demanding here to be on this team, and just prove everybody wrong. But
yeah,
um, he's a player who could be a factor, but again, slow roll.
yeah. The future is
Sweet.
now. The future is
Yep.
here. It's exciting. All right, Mike. Do you think Snuggerud scores in his first game?
Ooh, man, it depends who he's playing up against. It depends on who's, let's see here. I need to be able to pull up my handy dandy
Because
schedule.
Detroit's the next game.
Dvorsky couldn't get it done, but we're hoping Snuggerud will be the next in line. Some Blues greats to score in their first game. What do you think?
Yep. Detroit, if he can factor in the lineup here on Tuesday, which I think that he could, Detroit is
hmm
absolutely a game that he could score up here against. And
Yep.
then, he's got Pittsburgh. If it's not Detroit, it's going to be against Pittsburgh, and I think both teams he absolutely has the shot and the ability to be able to do so. Because it's likely not going to be as physical of a game here as what Dvorsky
Yeah.
played in. He could see some more ice time, which would be a great, great opportunity here for him. And then, Yeah, I mean, both goaltenders that he's going to end up seeing here in either one of those chances, absolutely, he has the ability and the shot to be able to do so. So here's hoping he's going to be able to score here in his first game. Absolutely.
Sweet.
I believe. I believe.
See a snuggie bomb.
Yeah,
First
yeah.
ever
And if it's
snuggie bomb in the
against
NHL.
Pittsburgh, as long as he gets the first shot of the game on Tristan Jarry, it should go in. But anyways, Alec and I are going to keep this party rolling and react to the Blues' recent games against the Colorado Avalanche and the Nashville Predators. But Mike, thank you for coming on, man. It's been a fun time as always, and glad we got your takes on Snuggerud. We appreciate it.
For sure, guys. Yep. Again, anytime you guys want to talk Blues hockey or just hockey here in general, doors always open.
Awesome. We appreciate it, man.
We appreciate it. Yeah.
Not a problem, guys. Take care.
All right, Snuggerud. It's Snuggie time.
He's here.
Yeah, shout out to Mike for coming on again. Always a great time to have him. You can check him out over on Twitter or X at @m_Meyer3, I believe. We also have his handle in the show notes here. But yeah, does a ton of great work covering Blues prospects and Blues hockey in general. So go check out what he does. He's awesome, and we always love having him on. But
check out his Substack too. He does some really good stuff. So
yes,
Mike's the man.
Always a good read. Alec, what was your reaction to Snuggerud signing the ELC? I know, I think we talked about this a little bit because people were like, will he sign? I hope he signs. I don't know. I don't think he'll sign. He's probably going to go back for his senior year. But I don't think you were that surprised. What was your reaction?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. This was always the plan. And if we've learned anything from Doug Armstrong and the St. Louis Blues front office, they have a plan and they're going to stick with it. Right or wrong, even if it ends up not working out, which obviously it has been working out incredibly well. It's more important to them to have that continuity and that resolute mindset. And this was always the plan. We knew this from even before the season started, that Snuggerud, last, I think, May, declared he was going to return to try and win a chip for Minnesota. And at that point, Doug Armstrong confirmed that this is what would be happening. So yeah, I wasn't surprised by it, but so excited to see Snuggerud in the NHL. The hype for Dvorsky has been awesome. The crazy thing is, I don't know if some people realize that Snuggerud might be better. As a prospect, it sort of depends. It's what's your flavor of prospect you like more. But there are a good number of sources who prefer Snuggerud to Dvorsky. And that's just awesome. He's obviously older, he's bigger. And yeah, I think I'm so excited because we haven't really, I think he does have a long way to go. I think he'll just be in an incredibly different role than what we saw the tape that's out there at Minnesota. So it might take some adjusting, honestly, to Montgomery and his play style. But once that click happens, seriously, I think expect this to be like a Dylan Holloway type player. I seriously think that he could, next season, this time, I think halfway through next season, it could start to click for him and he could be on the type of pace that Dylan Holloway is on right now. I mean, he's just so talented and so physically capable.
Yeah.
I am super excited to watch him play, obviously, in a blue sweater. I'm actually going to the game against Detroit. So if that's Snuggie's first game, which signs are pointing to yes, oh boy, I'm gonna be rowdy. But yeah, this is awesome, and I'm curious for you. What's your take on where he might fit into the lineup? I know I have my answer, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I think Mike is right. Probably third line, and really with, as I pointed out, with Matthew Joseph's decreasing ice time over the past couple of games, and it's not when you look at his full season game log and his time on ice over the season, getting just under 8 minutes or just under 10 minutes isn't that abnormal, but it's coming at the end of a long streak where we saw him consistently getting more than 12 minutes on ice per game. And so I do think he is kind of the odd man out, as Mike said, and that's where I see Snuggerud slotting in, and I think that's a great line that just feels like the spot where the experimentation can take place, whether it's Dvorsky coming in at center or Dvorsky getting on the wing or Snuggerud on Sonny's wing or Snuggerud on Dvorsky's wing. Like it just feels like there's a lot of permutations there, and all of them I feel like are I could get excited about. You know, if it's the same thing we've been seeing, great. Like it's been working. If it's Dvorsky in some way, awesome. I'd love to see him play. And then if it's Snuggerud, either on his own or with Dvorsky, I'm thrilled to see that too. But I do think third line is where he will probably get most of his minutes. You can't split up Holowish and Kyrou right now. Um, I could see also like a first line look, to be honest, if it's Neighbors slotting down somewhere or maybe Buchnevich, but probably not. I could see that happening. And if it's not like formally on the lineup card, I could definitely see him getting some of those minutes alongside Robert Thomas, like you said, maybe halfway through the game or towards the end of the game. If they want to put a lethal one-time option on Thomas's wing, that could work. And so I feel like while yes, the third line is probably where he will see the bulk of his playing time, I would not be surprised, and I would also not hate it if we saw him get a look on the top. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think it's probably Joseph is the guy, which sucks because Joseph's defense has just been unbelievable. His effort blocking shots and taking up space has been so good. And honestly, I do think that's something that will be kind of exploitable for Snuggerud. I don't know that I expect his defense to be very good at all, at least this season before, an off season of work and such. Again, he just played such a different role at Minnesota. So I think it's probably Joseph. I could see Sonny, but I mean, Snuggerud obviously isn't a center, and I don't know who you have playing center in that case if Sonny gets replaced for Snug. So I think it's probably Joseph, just how the arithmetic or the calculus works out. But yeah, I mean, I'm so excited to watch this, to watch him make his debut. And I have a really good feeling. I didn't want to, sound like an a-hole and say that I didn't think Dvorsky would score, but I have a really good feeling about Snuggerud finding the back of the net on Tuesday.
Yeah. As do I. If he slots into the lineup against Detroit, that's a team that has had their fair share of goalie troubles this year, and Snuggerud feels like the type of prospect that can definitely score in his first game. His one-timer is fantastic, and I wouldn't be surprised at all, for sure. So, wow. Pivoting to talk about some of the Blues' recent play, like this is the funnest stretch of the season. This is the best time of year for hockey in general, and especially Blues hockey right now. And boy, has it been fun to come on here twice a week and talk about it and react to this absolute wagon that we are seeing. 9 wins in a row. Who would have thought? And since we talked last, they beat the Preds 3-2 in a comeback victory, and then they beat the Avalanche 2-1 in a big game last night. I mean, that was fantastic to see them.
What a gutsy game.
Yeah.
Like, that is just all grit and like energy, like just that dog mentality. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Pavel Buchnevich having an impact in his first game back. He led all skaters on the ice in expected goals last night with 1.05. He also scored a goal. He scored the game-winning goal. So love to see that from him. Mike pointed out declining a bit over the years when it comes to his offensive output, but I'm glad that he stepped up last night. Bennington had 1.62 goals saved above expected, had a couple big saves in that game, and so loved seeing him come through as well. But do you have any reactions to this Colorado game or the Preds game, which they went up 2-0 on the Blues, and it was looking like the streak ends at 7 at that point, and that was a bit grim and to think about. But then here comes Dylan Holloway scoring 2 goals in the final 2 periods, along with Cam Fowler getting one as well. But like, what are your reactions to this game? It's like it feels like every time we come on, there's just they just look better and better, and it's just we just get more and more excited and hyping each other up. But yeah, what is your take? What do you think?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. I'll try and condense it into one point, but I have 2 points to make. One is real quick. I said on a recent episode, I don't know if it was our most recent, but some recent episode, I said I thought that Thomas had been kind of quiet.
Okay.
I thought he
Yeah,
had
can we
been
talk about
scoring.
this? Yeah.
I like he had been scoring, but I didn't see him just like taking over games like he had been.
Yeah.
What like hold my hand up? What was I on? Like, was I watching the
Yeah.
games? Clearly
What were we
not,
talking about?
because yeah, that is just I'll make the comment myself that just don't know puck, because oh my god, Robert Thomas has been unfreaking believable in this stretch of games. He has been absolutely dominating on the ice. I think especially when he doesn't have the puck, and then when he does, he's been just putting himself in the right position to make a play, as he's so good. He is not only is he on a point game stretch right now, he is on a multi-point game stretch, 4 games in a row with multiple points registered. I mean,
Yeah.
just been unreal. That system, Montgomery's system, really runs through him. They said in those Colorado post-game interviews from last night I watched, he said like Thomas is playing some of the best hockey of his career, and like we need that, and this is the result when Robert Thomas plays like we expect him to.
Oh yeah.
Actually, yeah, one more real quick point. Also, as I do want to say, from some, excuse me, sorry, I see some people talking about it in the chat. Buchnevich definitely looked really back. I don't know exactly what was going on first half of the year. Maybe he just needed to mentally reset. Maybe, I don't know, could have been some kind of injury thing, but I think he had a really good game last night. He led the team in shot attempts. Of course, scored the game-winning goal. I believe he was also second in shots with 4. I think the highest last night was 5. Had 8 shot attempts and looked so good. So if Buchnevich can get back to, putting pucks in the net, finishing, yeah, that would be huge. But those are my 2 quick takeaways, if you have anything there. And otherwise, I have a bigger discussion.
Yeah, well, just to add a couple stats to sort of the Robert Thomas point. Since 4 Nations, he's tied for the second most points in the NHL, with 27 since 4 Nations, and that's in, I'm trying to pull it up now, I believe only 19 games. But as you said, he's just getting, and the thing is, like, yes, we were sort of underselling him, or I guess undervaluing him, but like, to be fair, Robert Thomas is like the most quietly elite player in the NHL. Like, yes, he has been dominating games, but you wouldn't know it. Like, he's just like the mastermind behind the scenes, like the puppet master of the Blues. Like, you don't even know he's doing it, but he's having such a big impact on the game, on all of their games. Mostly in the assist column, which he's an elite playmaker, and so that's fine. I believe up until recently he was leading all skaters in total points since 4 Nations, but Rupe Hintz has recently caught up to him. He's got 1 more point than Robert Thomas, and Rupe Hintz in his past few games just going backwards from his most recent game. 2 points, 2 points, 3 points, 2 points. So it's like very recently he overtook Thomas, but pretty similar players there, I feel like. But still, Robert Thomas is tied with Nikita Kucherov for second most points since 4 Nations. Like,
And
that is
Kucherov had
elite
like
company to be in.
he had like an insane night the other night too. I don't remember exactly,
Yeah.
but it was like 5 points or something ridiculous.
See if I can find it. But yeah, just on the point of Robert Thomas, elite, and I feel like one of the reasons we haven't been pointing it out lately. Okay, he has had Kucherov has had 2 straight 4-point nights, and then a 3-point night before that. So he's pretty good at hockey, I'd say.
11 points in 3 games.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I just feel like Thomas is very quiet, but in a lot of ways that leads to people undervaluing him. Not usually Blues fans, but just sort of like in the national media and just fans in general. I feel like don't recognize how good Robert Thomas is and how elite he is, and so like there's not a lot of I don't know like there's not a lot of chatter out there, I guess, like about Robert Thomas and how good he is. I think it was it Jay Fresh who did a poll, like a
Yes.
series of polls about like Nick Suzuki versus other centers or something like that. And
Yes,
Robert
that's
Thomas
exactly what
just
it was.
did not get any love in like got a little, but like was people voted Nick Suzuki over Robert Thomas, I believe, which is just kind of crazy. They're both good, but like people don't know that Robert Thomas is an elite 1C. They just don't know it. And it's just the style of his game, I feel like, is part of it. He's just a quieter player and, doesn't really get in your face or, light up the stat sheet in terms of goals. But he's a playmaker and he is absolutely, an engine for this team. So props to Thomas for
Yep.
being one of the best players in the NHL in the past month or so.
Yeah, and really quick, I'm going to continue to make this comparison because I personally just think it's such a almost really perfectly accurate comparison, which would allow or would have the rest of the league who doesn't necessarily know about Thomas, put them more on notice. A player who gets a lot of respect, Sasha Barkov, this season, 62 games, 19 goals, 46 assists. That's 65 points. Robert Thomas this season, 63 games, 19 goals, 49 assists, 68 points. So Barkov is at 65 and 62. Thomas is at 68 and 63, both with 19 goals. Thomas at plus 16 on the year, Barkov at -1. And so he's elite. We all know it. And what were we talking about? He's awesome.
Yeah, he really is.
So
love watching him play hockey. But yeah, what else do you got to talk about here?
yeah, I think the biggest thing. So that was my side answer to your question. Now to actually answer the question you asked 20 minutes ago, I actually the biggest, maybe not surprised, but I think one of the most encouraging things about the way that this team has been playing is the way that this like franchise, this organization, this culture has been built up.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I really think we're seeing the rebirth of St. Louis Blues hockey culture in St. Louis right now.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, coming in, I specifically remember I've quoted a couple times. Montgomery's first press conference said, "We're going to play blue collar hockey." This is a working city. This is a city that doesn't get a lot of attention like a Boston or a Chicago or even an LA. But we have a better roster than all of those guys, and we're going to show them, and we're going to work harder than them. And that is exactly what's happened in St. Louis. Seriously, I don't think there is a better culture in the NHL right now. I mean, even the winning teams that have been winning forever, like honestly, Colorado is one of the highest culture teams out there, I'd argue. I think St. Louis has a better culture building right now. Just the effort level, the way we're seeing buy-in from everybody on the ice at all times in the game is unreal. It's super exciting to watch because you can really see them playing more, saying we're like playing for the front of the jersey more than the back. I've never been able to almost quantify that in the game, but those post-game interviews that came out last night, everyone who got interviewed talked about playing for your teammates above all else. Montgomery knows what he has to do. He's really good at coaching, and that's another point I'd like to make in this discussion. But everyone out there is going out with the mindset that when they step on the ice, that is not Jake Neighbors stepping on the ice. That is not Matthew Joseph. That is not Zach Bolduc. Like, that's like a St. Louis Blues player. Like, that's a teammate. Mm-hmm. That's a someone who is there to, help the team's success more than anything. And that's something that Bennington has said he's been absolutely feeding off of. When he sees the effort that everyone has been giving on defense, that inspires him to play better and show that he is a part of this work harder than you culture. And that's just been awesome. I think it's been a huge part of their success. That just, I cannot say enough about this culture. And it's like, the level of buy-in, again, I made this point on a couple other episodes that, like, I don't understand how we don't have half our roster injured because of just how much they've been pushing their bodies and taking a beating night in and night out, throwing hits, blocking shots, doing everything they can physically with their body. I don't understand how we don't have any injuries to come out of that. And not only are they not injured, they're like excited to do it the next night. Like, these are a bunch of like hockey playing freaks. I don't understand how they aren't like, don't go into the next game like at least a little bit dreading, like, oh my God, I'm going to get beat up tonight. No, they're excited to like beat the crap out of another like hockey team, like embarrass another NHL team. And that effort's been showing up on tape because that's exactly what they've been doing, is embarrassing NHL franchises and stealing wins that previously in the season we would have thought impossible. So, I mean, we talked playoff discussion last episode. Heck, give me Vegas, give me Colorado, give me Dallas. I don't care. Like, I'm taking the Blues versus the world right now, and that's totally being optimistic. I don't care. Like, they're so locked in right now that I think that they would take that excitement and it would elevate their play.
Yeah.
A big thing with the Blues used to be that like they would play down to competition. The inverse has happened ever since Jim Montgomery's been taken over.
No longer.
And I cannot say enough about that. It's unbelievable what Jim Montgomery has done. Unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I cut in here with a point about the on the culture point and like on the identity that has built up in this locker room and among this team? This is the exact time when you want to be doing that. When you've got a wave of new young players coming in, you want them to buy in, and you want these guys to stick around long term. You're going to be having to, extend Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg soon. Jake Neighbors, I think we'd all like him to stick around long term. Zach Bolduc, after this season especially, like, we want him to stay. And then Jimmy Snuggerud and Dalibor Dvorsky coming up and getting to see this culture, and hopefully it will resonate with them and convince them to stick around long term as well, because they are the future of this team, and by all indications should be the core of this team in their next iteration of like great Blues hockey and the next great era of Blues hockey. Like, those players are kind of here now, and yes, like, we would like them to sign someone or trade for a big name or something like that. So like, all of the pieces of the puzzle aren't exactly filled out here yet, but the core is here, and they're all clicking right now. I don't think I've been disappointed really with one young player this year. Maybe like Matthew Kessel or Texier, maybe a little disappointing, but like, the ones that have showed up have made up for the lack of showing up from their peers. And there's enough of them showing up that you're like, okay, we have a core here. And so when we have this buy-in, and they're going out, like you said, and playing for the Blue Note, the front of the jersey instead of the back, and sticking up for each other and doing it night in, night out, and not giving up or taking a day off on a back-to-back or something like that. When you have that right now, as all these young players are filtering through, that is perfect timing, and I think could be a big reason why they stick around long term.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that. I think that's a great point. I think also, to me, this feels very similar, and definitely, like, I see the comparison. It's very, for a lot of reasons, prevalent to make, and I don't totally disagree that this season does have very similar 2019 vibes. with this insane hot stretch, this turnaround from being a bad team to one of the best teams, and really like seriously, nobody wants to play the Blues right now. Also, the glory of this year, of course. I think everyone in the chat is well aware of Jobu and his charm. So Jobu, Jobu.
Good luck charm.
Yeah, but definitely like I see the 2019 comparisons, but honestly to me, this like because of that point that you just made, and we'll see what happens towards the end of this season, fingers crossed, knock on wood, all the good things. To me, this season really feels more like a early 2010s, like 2011 Blues type roster, where you were starting that next wave, that Alex Pietrangelo, Kevin Shattenkirk, David Perron, Patrick Berglund, Sobotka was one of my favorites. Even like Ryan Reeves and TJ Oshie, like that was the crop of young talent that was coming up in a year like 2011, 2010, 2011. And definitely they still had, older guys on the roster to supplement, but it really was this sort of youth movement in the next core of St. Louis building up from that. And I think that exactly like you said, that this is the next opening of that window, because to me, 2019, this isn't like the culmination of to me, 2019 was building off of a young core to put a contender together and win. And definitely like this roster has built off of previous successes. That's not what I'm saying. But to me, this isn't the finalizing of our window from 2019. To me, this is the reopening or the opening of a new window that for the next, I don't know how long exactly, but call it 5 to 8 years, maybe that's a little optimistic, but at least the next couple and like several couple seasons, like I really think 5 isn't too unrealistic. The Blues should be in the playoff hunt, and we'll see if they can build off of this to get a contending roster. Oh, I love that, Matt. Sobotka's Nathan Walker. That's a great comparison. But yeah, I really think that this is like the beginning of the next window of Blues playoff contention. And definitely there is a lot of 2019 vibes, but this team this core, like you said, is going to compete for years to come.
Yeah. That's the goal, of course. That's the hope. And yeah, I could definitely see it happening. And it is the opening of a new window, right? Like that point is definitely true, but you've still got like that 2019 Cup winner DNA on this team between Braden Shen, Jordan Bennington, and a couple other guys as well. Like that DNA is still there, and that's really valuable. Like we've talked about, having the young guys be around an experienced player who's done it before is really valuable. They learn how to conduct themselves. They learn what winning is like. They learn how to develop a winning culture. Even when times are tough, I think a winning culture isn't about just winning games. It's about, overcoming the bad stretches when they do come and the cold stretches when they do come, because they will, and they always do. And so a winning culture is being able to rebound from that, and having these older guys on the team in addition to all these young guys is just sort of the perfect cocktail right now, and has been really valuable, I think, for all of our young guys. But goodness, it is just a magical stretch of hockey right now. What else? Do you have any other points you wanna make here?
Yeah, I got one more big one. Sort of related to what we have been talking about, but it's really just giving credit to Jim Montgomery. Like for example, last night we don't win that game if anyone but Jim Montgomery is at the helm. I don't think we win that game if Craig Berube is at the helm. If I'm not sure who's the Jack Adams leader right now, but I think it is Jim Montgomery. Okay. Well, either way, I don't think anyone wins that game other than Jim Montgomery and the culture that he is able to build. Like we talked about with that buy-in, that's been huge. The thing that Monty has been able to cultivate, but the in-game coaching decisions that he has been making, he has been pushing every right button this season. Also, I'm just realizing I wonder, like, is it crazy to think that he could and maybe should win Jack Adams? I know he's only been with the team for half the season.
He should get votes. I'll say that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just think the turnaround from Washington this season, like Spencer Carberry won the award like a long time ago.
That's true. Yeah, and also, Monty obviously joined midway through the season. But anyways, back to what my point. That he has been pushing the right buttons in game to get these wins too. Last night, so I was on the road and I was listening to the radio broadcast. And which, by the way, if those of you listening haven't checked out the radio broadcast for these games, it's amazing. Shout out Chris Kerber, Joe Vitale. They do a fantastic job. I remember listening to a lot of 2019 from their calls because I couldn't get the broadcast, and just I highly pick a game and listen to it radio instead of on the video broadcast. It's so entertaining. But anyways, I was listening to the game, and one of the things that they were talking about was Jim Montgomery mid-game switching the lines. They he would switch up the winger pairings and have Kyrou and Holloway play with Thomas for a bit and make that sort of the first line when they were getting Colorado last night. Really, everything was working for Colorado. So again, the fact that they won that game is just insane. And so to get sort of a change of pace and to both mess with the timing of Colorado's offense, as well as to perhaps create something really explosive and dynamic from the Blues offense, Jim Montgomery switched up that line. But then as soon as they started to defend it, he switched back to the original line combinations. And it's little changes like that that are so hard to quantify that, that's why I say I don't think any coach other than Jim Montgomery wins that game last night. It's like he has a flow chart for how to beat every game script and how to go about every moment of hockey. Like he's already thought it, planned 3 steps ahead, and knows exactly what to do and what to say. And the biggest part of that too, I think, is his ability not only to be like a motivator, like I've been saying, build that culture, but also just to be a coach and teach these players how to do the things that he wants to do so that they can win the game. I believe it was Sundqvist in the game after it said Monty knows exactly what needs to get done, and he is so good about telling you exactly what you need to do. He really simplifies the instructions so that each individual player doesn't have to have this ridiculous flow chart of what exactly to do. But, Sonny last night said no, it was Thomas. Okay, I can't. It was one of the two, but basically they were saying essentially, I think it was Thomas. He's essentially, I'm reacting to the defense from, one of the opposing players. If they go down and cover Sonny, then I go to Bolduc. If they cover Bolduc, then I go to Sonny. And it's stuff like that where Montgomery is making the game so simple and so dumbing it down so much that the players don't have to think. They can just win with their athleticism and their hockey ability. And he's making it so easy for these players, on top of it being just a great system that manipulates that space so well. He's able to deliver it in a way that is easy to understand for all players. And so I really think not only his ability as a motivator has been amazing, his ability just as a coach, as a person able to instruct how to run a hockey team on the ice is better than anything we had seen. I think that's probably was one of Berube's biggest downfalls. He had a great structure, but just his ability to communicate that and to adapt and to put his players in positions to succeed really fell apart when the core that was built for him left St. Louis. Montgomery is adapting to his players, and it has made all the difference.
Yeah. It really has. So glad we have him locked up long term, and so glad
Cannot
that
believe it.
that the Bruins made that mistake, because boy, was that a big mistake. Oh yeah. So anything else? Anything else about the Blues right now?
I mean, I don't want to make us go 6 hours. I could talk forever about how this team is
We could probably
playing,
go for
but
a while. Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
will
mean,
say
just
this: it is really fun after a season full of looking at their schedule full of green and red to see one big old block of green. 9, green W's in a row is a pretty great thing to see, I will say. So
mhm.
that is awesome. So they're about to play, Detroit and Pittsburgh. Hopefully, these are a couple games where they can, get the points they need, the points that they should get, because these are 2 games that they should win. And then they're gonna face Colorado, Winnipeg, and the Oilers, all in a row, all important games for um, multiple reasons, right? Detroit and Pittsburgh, like, these are games where you can pad your lead, you can cushion your lead, because even the games in hand advantage for Calgary and Vancouver is slipping, because if they win their remaining games in hand, and the Blues don't lose significantly, like, they're still they still don't have enough. I don't think, to get it done. So, like, they still need to get these points from Detroit and Pittsburgh, and then at the end of the season against Seattle and Utah. But, like, that middle stretch, right? Colorado is, if they potentially, run into some crazy good luck and have a shot at the divisional spot, they're probably going to need to beat Colorado, in addition to Colorado losing a bunch. Winnipeg could be a first round playoff preview, so I would love to see how they match up against them. And then the Oilers, I don't know why I didn't realize this, but the Oilers only have 2 more points than the Blues right now. Like, this is a team that is considered a Stanley Cup contender, one of the elite teams of this era. And the Blues are about to catch them, potentially, and maybe finish with a higher point total. Like, that would be insane to me. I think it would be insane to a lot of people, but, like, it's just crazy. But
I mean, you want to play that game?
there?
We are. If you want to play that game, we are either 4 or 5 points behind everyone in the Atlantic. So maybe
There you go.
won't catch them, but, like, we'll finish within a game of the entire Atlantic Division. Yeah.
Yeah, this team looks good, and they are matching up well against some of the brass of the NHL. So hopefully they can get it done. On the point of Vancouver and Calgary, as I said, their games in hand advantage is kind of slipping. Vancouver has 2 games in hand. They're currently in the middle of a game against Winnipeg. It's tied 1-1. 2 games in hand, but they're down by 6 points. Calgary has 3 games in hand, down by 7 points. So it's like, that advantage isn't as big of an advantage as it was, like, a week or so ago. And so,
Yeah, I mean, even
yeah.
like, it's to the point where even if they win out, they still haven't caught us.
Yes, exactly. So the Blues still need to, take care of business and not cough it up. But, like, as I said, that advantage that those teams had on us that we were so worried about for a while, I'm not as worried about it anymore, just because they just refuse to lose a game right now. The Blues refuse to lose. It is crazy. How about this team, man? How about this Blues team?
Absolutely. Just unreal. Yeah. Could give shout outs all around forever.
Yeah,
I'll give one more
keep
shout
going.
out. I got one more shout
All
out.
right.
Is Oscar
All right.
Sundqvist. I've been pretty disappointed with his play for especially under Bannister, and I think the first half of the year. But he's really found his role in this Montgomery system, playing, like, physical and blocking shots, winning faceoffs. In the final minutes of the Colorado game, again, shout out to the radio broadcast team for pointing this out. They had Thomas and Sonny going every other shift with each other. they would go like Thomas, Sonny, other center, Thomas, Sonny, other center. Like really mixing up the rotation and giving those two the bulk of the minutes at the most critical point in the game when we were up 2-1 with like 6 minutes to go. And you know, that is so tiring. And Sonny on his post-game interview was like, yeah, I'm proud to be in this role. You know, I'm really not going to contribute to this team in any other way. I know that. I am so happy to be doing what Monty asks of me. Shout out to him for that effort. For finding a role on this team. You know, the Blues organization is in love with Oscar Sundqvist, and when he gets results like this, like I see why. You know, for someone who we had been sort of critical of to really carve out a role, like when Oscar Sundqvist is like a key cog in the machine that makes his team run, you know it's working right. So, yeah, that's my last. I'll cut myself off.
Yeah, we have run a little bit long here, but we appreciate everyone for tuning in and sticking with us. This has been a really fun episode. And if you missed the beginning, we had Mike Meyer on to talk about Jimmy Snuggerud just signing a entry-level contract with the Blues, and hopefully we'll see his start against Detroit. Hopefully, Alec, you will see his first game.
His
that
first
would be
goal.
so fun. If you're at the Detroit game, go find Alec. He'll be there. So
I'll be in a Blues jersey. Can't miss it.
Yeah, he'll be the one person. This has been fun. But as I said, thanks everyone for tuning in. If you haven't already, we would appreciate if you would subscribe to our channel. We just passed 300, so thanks everyone for getting us there. But let's get to 400. We would appreciate it, and then 500 after that. So. If you have enjoyed our content so far, then yeah, please hit that subscribe button and share our content with someone that you think would be interested. But also like this video. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can follow and rate wherever you listen. Leave a review. We love to read those. And then we are on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod, where we post a lot of great graphics and reels and memes, all kinds of fun stuff. So go check us out on all those platforms. And then if you want to celebrate the Cardinals, hot start to the season, check out our Twitter giveaway. Go to @NoteNewsPod on Twitter or X, and check the tweet pinned in our profile. We're giving away a free Cardinals hockey jersey. That giveaway will end really soon, so be sure to check that out and enter if you want a chance to win that. Rules are in the tweet, but I think all you got to do is follow, retweet, and then if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and post proof of that in the comments, you'll get an extra entry. So be sure to do that. If you enjoy Mike's content as well, I believe we have his Twitter handle in the show notes. But as I said, thanks everyone for tuning in.
He's great.
Yeah, Mike is awesome. So be sure to check out his work. He works hard on providing some good Blues content, but also Blues prospect content. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, check him out for sure. Thanks again to him for coming on. But that'll do it for us this time. We're gonna be back to talk hopefully after 11 wins in a row here pretty soon. So we will see. Fingers crossed and knock on wood. Knocked on wood a lot lately, but it's been working. So knock on wood again. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. And as always, let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.